The following module will address the electricity policies. Actually, electricity becomes more and more important in the world energy demand. In 1970s, the electricity demand constituted only 10% among other fuels. Now, this share at least doubled. And that also has a repercussion on the political importance of electricity. Likewise, those who are interested in the issue of sustainable development need to look at the electricity policies, because electricity is the sector where non-carbon emitting technologies can be actually promoted. We have to have a short look at the specificities of the electricity sector. First of all, we have to understand that electricity generation is divided between base load, mid load, and peak load capacities. Base load capacity is the electricity which supplies up to 80% of national economy, in lighting roads, making the industries work, providing transport, and all essential means of energy demand. Usually the base load capacity is capital intensive in installation, but with a lower operational costs. The perfect example of the base load is nuclear energy, as well as large hydro energy. Mid-load capacity is the one which provides electricity to the residential sector. High capital costs and varied operational costs. And finally, peak load, which serves to balance the electricity demand during its peaks. And you can imagine that during some parts of the day, the electricity demand might be extremely high compared, for example, to an early afternoon or an early morning. Peak capacities are usually low capital intensive in terms of installation, but they represent high operational costs. And quite interestingly, renewable energies would mostly serve at the peak load capacity. Noteworthy, base load capacity is used quite significantly. So there is no big difference between what is installed capacity and what we generate as electricity. That's not the case with the peak load. And moreover, in case of the renewable energies, we see that the utilization of the renewable energy capacity can be about 30%, which is extremely low level. And that's why a number of countries, of states, promote renewable energies by stimulating the demand of renewable energy in order to make these installed capacities used. So the question of capacity leads us to the following specificity. Electricity industry requires a certain level of overcapacity. It means that we have a capacity and then we have a market. But the question is, who will pay for not used capacity? And that's why there are various mechanisms called capacity markets. And here, a number of regulatory issues emerge. For example, how to integrate into the price future investments. Or, even more interesting, how to integrate into the price cancelled investments. Somebody was planning, a company was planning to create a new generation capacity, but then it was cancelled. But partly money was spent on it. How can it be transferred, or cannot it be transferred to the population? In some states, regulators fix actually the maximal level of investments in order to avoid overinvestments. So the companies do not start investing too much and subsequently creating the price increase. In other countries, on the contrary, regulators take into account what are the main drivers for new investments and therefore allow a price increase taking into account new investments. So what is our actually consumers' interest? Is it really to have an electricity price low? A low electricity price indeed ensures competitiveness, but it reduces investment attractiveness. It reduces also a level of modernization of the electricity sector. And electricity price, which may be low, does not stimulate new investments. In the other situation, when the electricity prices are high, we can say that consumers' interests, at least short-term consumers' interests, are clearly hindered, and the competitiveness is also weakened, but the high price stimulates innovation. And that's the dilemma of pricing. Dilemma of energy price, and especially of electricity price, remains one of the most difficult policy areas in the field. What are the blackouts? Are the blackouts part of the energy security? Of course. They are short-term energy security issues which can harm either regional or national economy. They can be generated either by technical failures, for example, at the level of transmission of electricity. They can be followed problems of adequacy between demand and supply, not enough of generation capacities, for example. Or finally, regulatory failures related to the price. One of the most striking regulatory failure is so-called Californian crisis. California, a state in the United States, liberalized its electricity markets in 1998 and created a wholesale market price, but fixed a retail price for the final consumers at the regulated level. And in 2001, wholesale price started to increase while the retail market remained regulated. At the end of the day, market participants started either decrease the production generation level or to deviate the flows to other states. And that led to a large-scale blackout in 2001. The Californian crisis demonstrates that markets can create very significant failures if they are not properly regulated. If there is no perfect, or let's say good condition for commercial operation in the market. The question that one can ask, whether in Estonia such a situation is possible. Again, an isolated energy market, which is weakly connected at international level. However, it happened historically that Estonia has a very significant overcapacity in electricity generation, because mostly of the Narva power plant, which was built since still under command economy in Soviet Union and was placed in the general Soviet economic context. Narva power plant aimed at supplying electricity to Leningrad, the current St. Petersburg. Likewise, the Narva power plant represents a very interesting story in fuel supply, because as you know, electricity can be generated from various fuels, and one of them is shale oil, which is also produced in northeastern Estonia. A particular view will be given by an industry representative from Estonia, who will give some highlights about a general situation in electricity sector in Estonia.